The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. Chapter 10. We must return to the inner part of the work, to work on oneself. If you think about it, you'll realize that the central part of your own work is understanding of the fact that we cannot do, of why we cannot do, and of what it means that we cannot do. How can you understand that? Either by trying to do what you have never done before, or by doing things in the same way. Then you will see whether you can do or not. Half the questions asked are about doing, how to change this, destroy that, avoid some other thing, and so on. But an enormous effort is necessary to change even one small thing. Until you try, you can never realize it. You see, you do not think enough, observe enough. You can change nothing except through the system. This is generally forgotten. The system shows how things can be changed and done differently from where one can begin. Even with the system, it is tremendously difficult, but without the system, it's impossible. Absolutely impossible. When you realize that, you will begin to understand the value of the system, because with the system, there is a chance. Without the system, there is no chance at all. This idea that we cannot do is very important, and we must always return to it. If this idea is not clear, or certain features of it are not clear, ask questions about it, because it is necessary to understand and remember it. Everything happens. People can do nothing. From the time we are born to the time we die, things happen, and we think we are doing. This is our normal state in life. And even the smallest possibility to do something comes only through the work, and first only in oneself, not externally. Even in oneself, doing very often begins by not doing. Before you can do something that you cannot do, you must not do many things which you did before. For instance, you cannot awake by just wanting to awake, but you can prevent yourself from sleeping too much and too long. Question by Ouspensky. Does one sometimes have a choice between two possible happenings? Answer by Gurdjieff. Only in very small things. And even then you will notice that things are going in a certain way and decide to change them. You will find how extremely uncomfortable it is to change things. Question. Why is it that I cannot give up the idea of being able to do? I have proved to myself so often that I cannot. Answer. This is the most difficult and most necessary thing to realize with your whole being, because so long as we think we can do, we shall always put off the things that we can actually do if we work. As I said, we can do things only in relation to ourselves. These are the things we have to begin with, but we shall never begin to study ourselves so long as we think we can do. This is our greatest illusion. This is one of our greatest illusions. Question. I can see that I have no choice in larger things, but it seems to me that I can do small things. Answer. These small things happen according to certain definite circumstances which control them. You think you control them, but in reality, they happen. We cannot do because we are asleep. How can sleeping people do? It is necessary to be awake. When one is awake, one can do. Doing is magic. You must understand that nothing happens at a time it happens. The necessity of it happening was created long ago. Things happen by themselves. Whether you do or do not do something may have been decided 10 years before. Maybe your actions had a certain direction 10 years previously, and that determines what you will do tomorrow. You cannot change it. We think we can make certain decisions and act accordingly. In reality, we are controlled not by internal decisions, but by external influences. If the internal decision corresponds to the external influence, we will do it. Otherwise, we will not. But we can create in ourselves powers to do. Nature has made us machines acting under external influences, but with the possibility to develop our own motor. If there is no inner motor, we will always turn round in the same place. Question: if a man sets an ideal for himself of how he ought to behave, would this not be what is meant by doing? Answer: the question is whether he can do it and whether he does it, because to make plans, to have ideals is one thing, and to do it is another thing. It may be just good intentions. One of the chief features of our being is that we cannot do what we decide. Question: sometimes I have found that with a little extra effort, I can make a great difference to other people in ordinary life. Isn't it doing? Answer: it is an illusion. Because if a thing must happen, you will make this extra effort. If it is not to happen, you will not make this effort. You think you can make it or not make this effort, that you can do or not do. But try to think in the right way, that you can do nothing, that things happen mechanically. One thing comes after another and just happens or does not happen, and you cannot help it. Question: but if you help a poor person to make his life tolerable? Answer: excuse me. If you help a poor person, it happens. If someone takes from this poor person what little remains to him, this also happens. One person will give him a penny. Another will take away the last he has. It is necessary to understand the principle that nobody can do anything. If you think of life, not personal life, but the life of humanity, wars, revolutions, you will see this clearly. You must try to find a right case for observation, because if you find something too small, you will not see it. But if you find the right case, the right conditions, right circumstances, you will very soon see whether you can do something or not. The simplest thing is to try and remember yourself. Can you do it or not? People think they can do, because sometimes they make certain plans and really get what they wanted. But this only means that they have got into a certain stream of events, and things happen to coincide with their plan. When things happen like that, we think that we did it, that we made a plan, and that we did everything according to this plan. In reality, it does not mean that we did it on purpose or knowingly, and it does not mean that one can choose one stream of events or another stream. It is just accident. In every kind of work, in business, in travel, and so on, it sometimes happens that things go successfully. But this only means that at a given moment, in a given place, things went mechanically in a certain way. Nothing more. It is difficult for us to realize, for example, that when people build a bridge, that is not doing. It is only a result of all the previous efforts. It is accidental. To understand this, you must think first of the bridge. You must think of the first bridge that Adam built, and of all the evolution of bridge. At first, it is accidental. A tree falls across a river. Then man builds something like that, and so on. People are not doing one thing comes from another. Question. I think it is an almost childish question, but I can never see how things cannot be different. One does something, and one cannot help thinking that one could do it differently. Answer. But if you behaved in a certain way, it means that you could not behave in another way. If you could, you would have behaved differently. We are so accustomed to think that things could be different that we do not try to change the things we could change. We change today, but yesterday is finished. If we change today, tomorrow things can happen differently. It looks like a contradiction, but it is precisely our belief that things can be different that prevents us from doing what we can to make them different. Question. When one really begins to understand that one cannot do, one will need a great deal of courage. Will that come from getting rid of false personality? Answer. One does not come to this understanding just like that. It comes after some time of work on oneself, so that when one comes to this realization, one has many other realizations besides, chiefly that there are ways to change if one applies the right instrument at the right time and the right place. One must have these instruments, and these again are only given by work. It's very important to come to this realization. Without it, one will not do the right things. One will excuse oneself. Question. I do not understand why one should excuse oneself. Answer. One does not want to give the idea that one can do, so that even if one realizes that things happen, one finds excuses such as, oh, this was an accident, but tomorrow it will be different. That is why we cannot realize this idea. All our lives we see how things happen, but we still explain them as accidents, as exceptions to the rule that we can do. Either we forget, or we do not see, or do not pay enough attention. We always think that at every moment we can do. If you see in your life a time when you tried to do something and failed, that will be an example, because you will find that you explained your failure as an accident, an exception. In the same situation, if the same situation repeats itself, you will think you will be able to do. And if you fail again, you will again explain your failure just as an accident. It's very useful to go through your life from this point of view. You intended one thing, and something different happened. If you are really sincere, you will see, but if you are not, you will persuade yourself that what happened was exactly what you wanted. When things happen in a certain way, we are carried by the current, but we think that we carry the current. Question. If one feels for a moment that one is able to do, say, to put through a particular job in one's ordinary work, what is the explanation of that? Answer. If one is trained to do something, one learns to follow a certain trend of happenings, or if you like, to start a certain trend of happenings, and then these develop, and one runs behind, although one thinks one is leading. Question. But if one has right attitude? Answer. No, attitude has nothing to do with it. Attitude may be right and understanding may be right, but you will still find things happening in a certain way. Any ordinary things. Try to remember instances where you tried to do something differently and see how you always came back to the same thing, even if you made a slight deviation. Enormous forces driving you back excuse me, enormous forces driving you back to the old ways. Question: are all our actions controlled by automatic responses to outside influences? Answer: no. We have many things already established, such as habits, usual ways of thinking, associations, buffers, and many other things. So it is not simply influences to which we have natural response. Many things are the result of previous influences. Question: I cannot separate the idea of not being able to do from fatalism. When and how have we the power of choice, and how do we differ from animals? Answer: in the present state, we differ very little. Our power of choice begins only when we begin to realize our situation, our mechanicalness, and when we begin to struggle for something else. There are possibilities for that, but this is a formatory way of thinking, either determinism or freedom. Some things are determined, some less determined, some are in our power, if we know how to change them or how to turn them. Only we must know. Everything is relative. Question: when you said that we cannot help the same things happening, did you mean until our being has changed? Answer: I did not speak about work. I said it was necessary to understand that by ourselves we cannot do. When this is sufficiently understood, we can think about what it is possible to do, what conditions, what knowledge, and what help are needed. But first, it is necessary to realize that in ordinary life, everything happens. Only when this is emotionally understood is it possible to go further.